Welcome to part 3 of my Anakin Skywalker Character Analysis. If you haven't seen part 1 or 2 yet, then I highly encourage you to do so. I'll throw up the title card and place a link in the description to it. In today's video, I'll continue my case for Anakin as the greatest Star Wars character, looking at his role in episode 3. So without further ado, let's get into it. Padme arrives to Mustafar right after, and we see Anakin take down the Shroud of Vader, represented physically by him lowering his hood, and in every other sense in his demeanor, as he's reunited with life, joy, and personality at the sight of his pregnant wife.
What are you doing out here?
I was so worried about you.
Anakin needs compassion, something Padme has always provided, but with the fear of losing her, it consumes him and pushes him further from the ideals that she stands for. Padme is concerned, and because of her unlimited compassion and love for Anakin, she's willing to bravely give it one final shot to snap him back to his senses. How Anakin would react would tell her everything she needs to know.
Obi-Wan told me terrible things.
What things?
He said you've turned to the dark side, that you killed younglings.
Obi-Wan is trying to turn you against me.
Anakin's so far gone that he's forgotten who his friends are and is willing to push out anyone that may stand a chance of standing in his way. Hearing this only fuels Anakin's hatred towards Obi-Wan, as while everything she said is true, it paints him in a bad light, as he goes out of his way to try to rewrite the narrative in his favor, making it seem like Obi-Wan is the one spreading rumors, with an agenda of his own. Again, never denying the allegations themselves.
He cares about us.
Us?
He knows. He wants to help you.
It's revealed to Anakin here that the facade is over, as Obi-Wan not only knows about him and Padme, but has always known. Rather than looking at this positively, as a chance for a friend to help, as Padme does, he sees this as someone invading his privacy, ruining everything he's built, and has been working on for himself and his wife. His perspective is simply twisted.
Anakin, all I want is your love.
Love won't save you, Padme. Only my new powers can do that.
At what cost? You're a good person. Don't do this.
This is the very essence of what Padme is about, to make a change in the world without sacrificing her ideals, as they make up her identity. Anakin and Padme in this moment illustrate the idea of dying the hero and living too long to see yourself become the villain. Padme understands that she can't control everything, but she can control the type of person that she is through her actions, where Anakin believes he can change the world, and is willing to make sacrifices to his character along the way. He's fallen a long way from the man that once wisely preached about compassion and being encouraged to love. That was an essential part of a Jedi's life. But now, he clearly has become something entirely different.
I won't lose you the way I lost my mother. I am becoming more powerful than any Jedi has ever dreamed of, and I'm doing it for you, to protect you.
Anakin is dead set on controlling the uncontrollable, and avoiding a repeat of history, an event that torments him to this day as he never allowed himself to reach acceptance in the grieving process. Now he has forsaken the power of love and uses the strength of his abilities as a justification for the horrible things that he's done and plans to do. But as we know, it's our choices that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities.
Come away with me. Help me raise our child. Leave everything else behind while we still can.
We don't have to run away anymore. I have brought peace to the Republic. I am more powerful than the Chancellor. I can overthrow him. And together, you and I can rule the galaxy. Make things the way we want them to be.
The two have very different ideas of how they want to spend the rest of their lives together. Padme still believes in the very idea that he once convinced her of, that love will find a way and conquer all. That focusing on each other would be all that they would need to find happiness. But for Anakin, he's become consumed by his ever-growing power, as absolute power corrupts absolutely. His once impervious sense of morality has lessened to the point that he's now filled with ideas of conquering the galaxy, becoming the slaver that he's always hated, overthrowing the Emperor and betraying the one man he still trusts, and devaluing the power of love.
I don't believe what I'm hearing. Obi-Wan was right. You've changed.
I don't want to hear any more about Obi-Wan. The Jedi turned against me. Don't you turn against me.
Anakin's relationship with Obi-Wan has become shattered. Where he once viewed him as a friend, he is now an enemy. And this is one of the many reasons Padme begins to break down, as she knows that Anakin's care for Obi-Wan is unmatched. And when that's been broken, there's very little hope for the Chosen One to be able to see the light. It's here that we start to see the threatening nature of Anakin directed at Padme, as he would never do that in any other circumstance. But his consumption of the dark side has imbalanced him to the point that he would dare contemplate being a menace towards the love of his life.
I don't know you anymore. Anakin, breaking my heart. You're going down a path I can't follow.
Because of Obi-Wan.
Because of what you've done, what you plan to do. Stop! Stop now, come back! I love you!
Anakin has changed, and it's left Padme in heartbreak. He's transformed, and only for the worse. He's chosen the dark path, and as a result, it's a lonely one. Anakin has lost sight of the good person that he was, and he can't look into a mirror and self-reflect and take accountability, blaming Obi-Wan yet again for all the problems in his life, trying to convince himself of this as it's a truth that he wants to believe. Padme reminds him again it's always about actions, as it defines character more than anything. And despite those actions, she still remains idealistic, hopeful, and optimistic, admitting that she still loves him, showing him compassion when he needs it the most. Unfortunately though, the same way that love had blinded him, so has its antithesis in hate, as he sees Obi-Wan standing, looming over in Padme's ship. Hatred paralyzes life. Love releases it. Hatred confuses life. Love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life. Love illuminates it.
Liar!
No!
You're with him! You brought him here to kill me!
No!
Let her go, Anakin! Let her go!
Obi-Wan has now not only witnessed Anakin kill innocent children, but also harm the very person he loves the most in the galaxy. If he's willing to do that to her, then in his mind, there's no hope for him. Anakin here reaches an all-time low, as he chooses to harm the one person that's always believed in him, and the love of his life, as he pulls out the iconic Force choke on Padme. Padme is a representation of the last bit of good that Anakin had in him, and, like the Eclipse, Anakin, or Vader, chooses to snuff out the last bit of light that remains in him. Up to this point, there was a duality between Anakin and Vader, but from here on out, except when he asks about Padme in the suit, we see Vader take over. What was once a Romeo and Juliet tale of forbidden love now ends in a similar tragic fashion, with the death of Padme and Anakin, only to be replaced by Darth Vader.
You turned her against me!
You have done that yourself!
Obi-Wan reminds Anakin that he has all the power in this scenario. Rather than blaming others for the outcome, he must look within if he wants to see change. There's nothing Obi-Wan can do to make Padme change her opinion of Anakin. It's only Anakin that can do that, as it's his actions that speak the loudest when it comes to others determining his character. If Obi-Wan could show Anakin that it's his own fault and have him accept responsibility as he does, then he could have a chance. Unfortunately though, Anakin blames everyone but himself, projecting his shortcomings and failures on his master, but a simple look in the mirror would show him the monster that he's become.
You will not take her from me!
Your anger and your lust for power have already done that. You have allowed this Dark Lord to twist your mind until now you have become the very thing you swore to destroy.
Obi-Wan eloquently states the flaws in Anakin's decisions, as he's been manipulated into seeking happiness in a place that would never give it to him. He has seen Anakin grow from an altruistic young boy that only wanted to help others to a man who has become a tyrant and lusts and craves power above the people that he cares about.
Don't lecture me, Obi-Wan. I see through the lies of the Jedi. I do not fear the dark side as you do.
Anakin attempts to reduce Obi-Wan's words to a misguided lesson that the Jedi have reiterated time and time again. as he's done being lectured and told what to do. Anakin feels that he can see more clearly than everyone else because he's bought into the truth that Palpatine believes he wants to hear. And as a result, he may claim to be unafraid of the dark side itself, but he definitely should be fearful of the consequences of using it.
I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire.
Your new empire?
Don't make me kill you.
Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy!
Obi-Wan reminds Anakin that it's not about the side itself that they once fought together so valiantly for, but what they stood for, as the philosophy behind democracy is that everyone has a voice and everyone's opinions matter, that through communication we can reach a common goal. But Anakin has just embraced the ideals of the Empire, where one rules all and makes what they deem the best decision for them is, emphasizing that he's become what he hates, as he once grew up a slave and now he's treating the galaxy's citizens as slaves of his own. Anakin has redefined in his mind what freedom is, as the plague that is Sidious has manipulated him into believing that this is right. Anakin also threatening to kill Obi-Wan is reminiscent of him telling Luke,
"Don't make me destroy you."
It's as if he's doing things, or going to do things, that he truly doesn't want to do, discarding the idea that he has a choice. Even though, as we know, the major theme in Star Wars is the idea that we all have a choice.
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I will do what I must.
You will try.
Anakin has become closed-minded and has made everyone his enemy. Obi-Wan was still willing to compromise with Anakin, but he has failed in showing him that he can be reasoned with. Ironically, Obi-Wan states an absolute, but in context, he's giving Anakin a chance to choose not to fight, spoken like a true guardian of peace. He will defend what the Jedi stand for, and Anakin speaks like a true Sith, as he will eliminate anything that stands in the way of his goals, where the Jedi will only interfere if it affects others, not necessarily themselves. The idea of being selfish versus selfless. And so, the Battle of the Heroes begins, and the name is as fitting as they come, as they were once both heroes of the Republic. But as the title card suggests, it's all about perspective. In their own right, they are now the heroes and champions of their sides. It's again a great representation of the dichotomy of the Jedi and Sith, as Anakin is the full aggressor with Obi-Wan on his back foot the entire time. Anakin constantly goes for the kill, never holding back, and being almost Terminator-like in some instances, as no matter what, he menacingly approaches his master time and time again, with no remorse and only hatred in his eyes, truly evolving into more machine than man, using his body as a weapon, where Obi-Wan looks to tire his opponent and look for an opening, a visual representation of offense versus defense. The fact that Obi-Wan matches Anakin's intensity, speed, and ferocity blow for blow, and survives as long as he does, essentially having an answer to all his tricks, just shows how much the two truly know and understand each other, even able to mimic each other's moves. Although, in terms of power in the Force, this is not only a failing on Obi-Wan as a teacher for his student not to surpass him, but equally a failure on Anakin as the chosen one with unlimited capabilities and potential to not easily tear through Obi-Wan, most notably represented through his inability to overpower him and reach a stalemate during their Force push segment. Even the two fighting each other and little by little destroying the facility that they're in is representative of the consequences of choosing violence over finding peace. Without realizing it, everyone else suffers due to their fighting. Similar to the idea that united we stand and divided we shall fall. In this case, the structure of the Republic is what suffers the most along with the Jedi Order, and most importantly, the once good friendship that these two brothers had. Also to note, the difference in color of their clothes represents their stance on the classic tale of good versus evil, as Obi-Wan has always sported a lighter color tunic, symbolizing his unwavering affiliation to the light side of the Force. The consistency of his clothes throughout the trilogy emphasizing his incorruptibility. For Anakin, we see how his clothes have gotten progressively darker throughout the films of the prequels, representing his descent into darkness. Not only do they represent good versus evil, but that of the good and evil we see in everyday life, as they are the most metaphorically human representations of it, with flaws and being in the gray, rather than as black and white, which is sometimes what those like Yoda and Sidious could be seen as. Also, what this thing most simply represents is two friends in conflict with each other.
I have failed you, Anakin. I have failed you.
Anakin has felt this way for a long time, that his master was the person who ultimately failed him. However, it's Obi-Wan's ability to take accountability, and Anakin's lack of, that allows a person like Obi-Wan to continuously learn and grow from his mistakes, whereas Anakin stagnates, never reaching his true potential.
I should have known the Jedi were plotting to take over.
Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine is evil!
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Well, then you are lost!
Ironically, Obi-Wan shows here one of the ways that he's failed Anakin as a teacher, as he fails to communicate with him properly, only looking at the situation from his perspective, never stopping to think how Anakin came to his own conclusion. This concept of perspective is what Palpatine understood and exploited. As he stated earlier,
good is a point of view, Anakin.
So when Anakin doesn't listen, Obi-Wan just gets more frustrated, rather than explaining or even hearing him out. Anakin's perspective has him believe without a doubt now that the Jedi are the villains. He's convinced himself that he's still the hero of this story, which is the real tragedy, as he's incapable of seeing himself for who he has become, to see how far he's fallen. But because of his belief in this false truth, he can't come back from the dark path that he set himself on.
This is the end for you, my master.
The two know that the fight will only last so long, and Anakin will not be reasoned with, as he makes it clear that he will not stop until one of them is dead, that the man in Anakin is destroyed and Vader will complete his task by wiping out all the Jedi, including his own brother and Obi-Wan. So Obi-Wan does what he can to put him in a no-win scenario by taking the high ground and challenging his ego.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
You underestimate my power!
Don't try it!
It's a bit of reverse psychology, but it effectively works. Also, the idea of having the high ground is not only a physical truth used to exploit his hubris and arrogance, something Obi-Wan's seen in Anakin before, and as well in his duel with Maul, overall a common trait among the Sith in general, but it's also a metaphor for Obi-Wan having the moral high ground, as Obi-Wan feels his actions are justified, as he fights for others and Anakin fights for himself and the power he can obtain, and how it benefits him, to the point that he's still concerned with trying to prove his strength as a warrior. Anakin tries yet again to do the impossible, and fails. He falls for Obi-Wan's trap and allows his arrogance and pride to be his downfall. It's a moment of encapsulating his great hubris. As Luke would say, his overconfidence is his weakness. He cares too much about what others think, and having his great skills challenged in combat, the very thing he prides himself in most as a Jedi, it blinds him to attempt a trick that would have been near impossible to execute, especially against the man that trained him and raised him. In the same way that Obi-Wan has the moral high ground, Anakin has stooped to the level of those that he once fought against and their ideals that he so admittedly opposed. He became the very thing he swore to destroy. And there's a bit of poetry in the fact that Anakin tries to leap his way to the high ground to surpass his master, and fails rather than work his way up one step at a time, a more likely route to succeeding. It's symbolic of the philosophy of the Jedi and the Sith, as the Sith always choose the quicker and more seductive route, not realizing that they're cutting corners to achieve a false sense of greater power, where the light is truly stronger, but simply harder to master with the amount of effort, patience, and dedication that's required. In one swift stroke, Obi-Wan wins by dismembering Anakin, which forces him to become the very thing he mentions in the original trilogy.
He's more machine now than man, twisted and evil.
It's fitting of Anakin, as losing his limbs is symbolic of losing a piece of his humanity, a scar he would live with for life, and the price he would pay for betraying all that he cared about. It's sad as Obi-Wan, his best friend, essentially closes the casket on Anakin, as he would live the rest of his life in the tomb that we know as the iconic suit.
You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them! Bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness! I hate you! You were my brother, Anakin! I loved you!
In other words, Obi-Wan is simply saying, I'm disappointed in you. Obi-Wan was one of the few people that always truly believed in Anakin, and while in Anakin's eyes he only feels resentment towards his former master, he felt he held him back. Obi-Wan was only so hard on him because he believed in him so firmly. He witnessed the good boy that was once Anakin transform into something evil, and as Anakin yells with rage about his hatred, Obi-Wan can only respond with love. And more painfully, he expresses it in the past tense. There was a time he would do anything to save Anakin, but Anakin, the very symbol of hope for the Jedi as the prophesied chosen one, causes Obi-Wan's hope to die with him. Anakin can't help but be filled with hatred towards his master as he expresses his disappointment in him one final time. All the times in his life that he felt Obi-Wan was overly critical gets compounded into this moment, as Anakin had the weight of the world on his shoulders, and to the best of his ability he tried to carry it and balance it, but he failed. And he was always in fear of what others would think, and now he gets one final slap in the face reminding him of all of his failures. He had so much potential not only as a Jedi and a Force user, but as a person, as he was the person that once would have tried to save the galaxy even before he knew of his powers, and now he aims to destroy it. Anakin's pain also makes him incapable of seeing Obi-Wan as the brother that he once was to him, as their relationship feels like it would forever be severed. This scene even mirrors one at the very beginning of the film where Anakin saves Obi-Wan without question. But this time, Obi-Wan doesn't return the favor, as even Anakin said,
But you owe me one, and not for saving your skin for the 10th time.
So Obi-Wan doesn't save him, not out of spite, but he leaves him to die because he doesn't want to save Vader. He would rather that the memory of Anakin remain. Essentially, if he died now, he could still die the hero and the friend that he admired. Depending on how you look at it, it could be cruel. But Obi-Wan would rather not only his memory of him be intact, but also that Anakin would no longer be in pain. He attempts to do Anakin one last favor, to rid him of his pain forever, so that the boy who lived in fear may finally rest in peace. As Anakin burns with rage, so does he physically. As he's engulfed and consumed in the flames, he now becomes as unrecognizable physically as he was mentally to his friends. We as the audience can see now Vader through Obi-Wan's eyes, as a monster. And while this happens, Obi-Wan forces himself to see what Anakin has become, to remind himself of the reality of his failure, so he could remember this image and do everything in his power to ensure that it never happens again. In the same way Obi-Wan mentions,
This weapon is your life.
Him taking Anakin's weapon is symbolic of that very thing. He left believing that he killed Anakin Skywalker, but he wouldn't let the good memory of him die, so he took his weapon, so that his memory would live on, to then one day use it to inspire his son and Luke Skywalker. Even as Obi-Wan leaves and Anakin is suffering from his burns, he so ferociously holds on to life through the dark side, the thing that could be argued as a cause for more of his pain than the physical burns themselves, as the fire inside him rages on, represented and seen physically through his Sith red and yellow eyes, and more importantly, through his actions, as he continues to reach out with his one mechanical arm, attempting to pursue Obi-Wan to exact his revenge on him. It's a sad sight to behold as we see his body has been broken, but his spirit for the worse continues to fight on. As we see Anakin alone climbing the hill, we see how alone he is in the galaxy. While Palpatine comes to save him, he truly does not love and care for him. His brother in Obi-Wan is now gone, and his wife is on the verge of death because of his own actions. The one limb that remains, being the already mechanical arm, reinforces the idea that he is more machine now. And that machine aspect is what we know as Vader and the dark side, as he clutches onto life through his dark nature.
He's still alive.
Palpatine then looks upon his apprentice, seeing what has become of him, and it can almost be mistaken for a loving fatherly moment, as he would place his hand on his forehead. But in reality, he's more disappointed in him than anything, worried about how this affects him, as this greatly hinders the potential that Vader had to surpassing his master in terms of sheer power. Having Palpatine come rescue him would cement Anakin's dependence on him, as he would feel, especially following Padme's death, that he was the only person left in the galaxy that he could trust and rely on, almost creating a toxic Stockholm Syndrome effect, unable to realize that he's truly his prisoner. Anakin's lack of love from a real father figure in his own life would have him mistake this for it. Anakin would then be brought to Coruscant, arriving in a thunderstorm, with the rain representing the last bit of Anakin and the Republic being washed away, and being reborn as Vader in the Empire. Reminiscent to the creation of Frankenstein's monster, Palpatine has a shell of a man built in the form of Vader's iconic suit, stripping away the last pieces of humanity that were left of Anakin. As Obi-Wan would say,
He's more machine now than man, twisted and evil.
Meanwhile, this is mirrored with Obi-Wan trying to keep the spirit of Anakin alive, attempting to save Padme's life as she represents the good in Anakin and their children, a symbol of their love and compassion. It's almost like both the good and evil masters of Anakin are still fighting to guide the chosen one on their desired path. So it's fitting that Palpatine creates a suit to trap and imprison Anakin and control him. And Obi-Wan does what he can so Luke and Leia can be born and live a free life, one that Anakin never got to live. While Palpatine's magnum opus in Vader is being created, the Skywalker twins are born as well. As the offspring of Anakin, they represent the one thing Palpatine could never do: to love. So it's fitting that the symbol of the Empire in Vader is born out of Palpatine's greed and Vader's hatred. And at the same time, Luke and Leia are born out of Anakin and Padme's love and compassion.
Obi-Wan, there's good in him. I know there's still.
Obi-Wan sees Padme die, but never her spirit. It's that belief and resilience that she possesses that would live on in Luke and Leia, and one day reawaken Anakin. Padme, like her son would decades later, would prove that there would still be light in Anakin as long as others believed in him, even if others wouldn't be able to see it for themselves. But in some cases, you need to believe before you can see, as that in essence is having faith. Unfortunately for Obi-Wan, as hopeful as he is and wants to believe that the good in Anakin still exists, he truly believes that there is no hope. That's one of the very tragedies of losing his best friend, as he lost a piece of himself in the process, as Anakin always inspired him with hope of a brighter future. It's also fitting that as Anakin gets closer and closer to Vader's suit, or Anakin's coffin, being complete, Padme gets closer and closer to death, driving home the idea of their Romeo and Juliet love story, as both their lives are taken in the end, as neither star-crossed lover can live in the world without the other. As Anakin is being put into the suit, he's in constant pain and agony, not knowing that the suit would literally be built that way, to where he would constantly feed off the dark side through his physical pain. And one key moment is highlighted as the lenses activate as the mask is being thrown on Vader. It's the last time that Anakin will be able to see the world with his own eyes, at least until the very end. What's important here is that the world will be seen through the eyes of Vader instead, that how he sees and perceives things will be filtered through metaphorically cloudy lenses. There's also a small moment where the mask is put on and his heartbeat stops. And then he takes his first breath, and the heartbeat returns, really driving home the idea that Anakin Skywalker, or at least the man that everyone had known and loved, has died. And from his ashes, Vader takes his place and is born anew. And so, Palpatine's creation in Vader, both physically and metaphorically, rises from the ashes of Anakin Skywalker.
Where is Padme? Is she safe? Is she all right?
It seems in your anger, you killed her.
I couldn't have. She was alive. I felt it.
Anakin's worst fear has been realized, as he created a self-fulfilling prophecy. This, as we would see from his reaction, would break him as a person, with nothing left to live for, only to serve the Emperor as his executioner, as Vader would act as the fist that serves justice to the galaxy, really serving as a means and excuse for him to continuously let out his anger on those in the galaxy that he deemed deserving of it, then having a jaded, pessimistic, and cynical outlook on life, with nothing left to lose. From then on, the spirit of Anakin would be subdued and locked away in the suit, deep somewhere that would take the good nature of his son to unlock from that prison. Ironically, he's cuffed to the table and breaks free. But in that moment, he's truly in chains again, serving the Emperor, the Sith, the Empire, and his emotions. And worst of all, the one man Anakin placed his faith in and trusted above all, orchestrated his own demise, as Palpatine is thrilled, shown by the smile on his face as Vader lashes out in anger, as the galaxy is in his control, and his greatest weapon in Vader will be loyal only to him. In the final scenes of the film, Padme's funeral is being held, and she's still holding on to the necklace that Anakin made for her all those years ago, when he begun his journey to become a Jedi, once a symbol for good fortune, now a symbol of her belief in the good in Anakin, and hence her ability to see the potential in everyone. Meanwhile, in deep space, Vader and Palpatine look on to the creation of the Death Star, the technological construct that could be considered Palpatine's greatest achievement. But truly, it's the man that stands next to him, or more so, how he corrupted him and manipulated him to the point that he's no longer recognizable to those that cared about him most. Also to note in this scene, the decolorization of the Republic ships, along with Vader now having an all-black suit, just shows through color how he, along with the former Republic, and now Empire, have embraced the dark side, as the age of the Empire has a more industrial and soulless feel to them. Vader's closing shot has him look out to the early creation of the Death Star, looking onwards into space alongside his master, and now Palpatine stands next to Vader with no one standing in his way, paralleling the end of Episode 1, where Obi-Wan and Padme were the only people left to protect Anakin. His story is a sad one, as he began the trilogy a slave and ended as one as well. It just simply took another form. It's a story of how far a man can spiral into despair and allow their fear to control them, for them to dedicate so much of their time and effort to fixing the uncontrollable and losing yourself in the process. How someone can change as a person because they sacrifice their morals in an attempt to achieve success. Vader, as the embodiment of fear, truly shows how fear is the path to the dark side, as fear can lead to anger, hate, and then suffering. And suffer he would, as death would create finality to the nightmare, as it did for his wife. But living, as he did, would force him to deal with the consequences of his actions. Simply put, dying the hero, or living long enough to see yourself become the villain. Anakin shows how anyone can fall. He reminds us of our humanity here with his descent, how we're all susceptible to mistakes, as it's the most human thing to do in nature, how he went from the chosen one to the fallen hero. But in that same regard, the fallen hero can still rise. As a wise man once said, But the reason we fall is so we can learn to pick ourselves up again. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I had a ton of fun making this video, so if you enjoyed it too, then I highly suggest liking the video. And if you want to see more like it, then definitely hit subscribe. And if you want to be notified when part 4 comes out, then hit the bell for notifications. Or consider checking out my Patreon, where I'll be uploading videos there significantly sooner than on YouTube. So part 4 should be available there as I speak. And the same will apply to the next parts when they come out. And on that note, I want to give a shout out to my patrons. Your support means everything to me. And finally, let me know in the comments which Star Wars character has gone through the greatest fall from grace and why. And who knows, they might be in the next one. Until next time, I will bring peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire.